Okay, we are live. It's 3 o'clock. Good afternoon and welcome back to COVID-19 Best Practices in Community Associations. I am your host, Tim O'Keefe, an Executive Director and Partner with KW Property Management and Consulting. Today, KW Property Management has partnered with Becker Law and one of our clients, Ocean Club in Key Biscayne, to share COVID-19 best practices in community associations. Since last Thursday, we've seen a lot of changes. States, counties, cities, and community associations are all taking this pandemic much more seriously. We're seeing a more aggressive approach to closing public places. In the past week, Ohio, Louisiana, and Connecticut have joined Washington, California, New York, Illinois, and New Jersey in shutting down public areas. Just yesterday, after mounting public pressure, the Olympic Committee announced that they will postpone the 2020 Summer Games in Tokyo. Just last night, I woke up this morning to new news that there's a $2 trillion stimulus package that was approved by Congress overnight. Over the next hour, our panel of experts will discuss how these changes in the past week have affected decisions and protocol for us to follow in community associations. Let me welcome our three panelists today for taking the time to participate on this webinar. We much appreciate that. First, I'd like to welcome back this week Donna Berger. Donna is a shareholder in Becker's Community Association practice in Fort Lauderdale. It's great to have you back this week, Donna. You're becoming quite the expert in handling coronavirus questions. We still have a lot of ground to cover. Please remember, for all on the phone, that Donna is an attorney, but she is not rendering legal opinions today. She is discussing best practices. Thanks, Donna, and welcome back.
Thank you.
I also like to welcome Steve Powel. Steve is a board president of an 802-unit master association in Key Biscayne called Ocean Club. Steve has been tasked with making a number of tough decisions in the past week. He can share real-life experiences with us. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Tim. Obviously, slow news day if you wanted me on with your publication. And unfortunately, Donna, I was looking for some free legal advice today, so I'll sit back and ride along.
Advice in the midst of a pandemic, but we'll talk about that.
Steve, you will get free legal suggestions today, so we'll look forward to that.
Then again, that advice is always worth what you pay for, right?
That's right. That's right. And also we have Katalina Cruz has joined us again this week. Kat is a partner at KW and serves as our chief operating officer. She has a lofty job keeping up with the coronavirus in all of our communities. Kat, I can assure you that Kat and her team are working tirelessly around the clock to provide information to our clients and a safe work environment for all KW staff. So let's get started. If any of our listeners have questions today, please type them in the chat box. We'll be happy to address them. We'll do our very best to answer all the questions that come in live during the broadcast. My first question goes to Donna, and it really came in from one of the audience today. They said there's a lot of people coming down here from Florida. They're seeing families come down, moving into their properties. And I know that just last night or overnight yesterday, the governor signed an executive order around a 14-day quarantine that people that come from infectious states like New York and New Jersey are automatically quarantined for 14 days once they get to Florida, either 14 days or the length of their stay, whatever is shorter. Donna, can you expand on that a little bit? And how is that supposed to be policed in individual properties?
Yeah, it's a great question. And obviously our phones at Becker are ringing off around the clock. That question is the latest question we're getting. This crisis continues to evolve. In terms of people coming down from, let's take New York City as an example, because that seems to be one of the hottest spots in the country with the infection rate rising and the death rate rising as well. Governor DeSantis has declared that people coming from New York City and New York should be quarantined, should self-quarantine for 14 days. I can tell you my own son came home from New York and he had to fill out a form on the plane saying where he was going to be for the next 14 days. And I've been told that they will follow up on that. I think boards have to make a distinction between a couple different things. One, are you talking about a tenant moving in from New York City or an owner who has purchased property? Are you talking about an approved application or a pending application? These are the conversations you need to be having with legal counsel. But some of my communities have already put in their COVID-19 disaster plan, which they have passed pursuant to 718.1265, the emergency powers section of the Condominium Act. They've already addressed this, Tim, in that disaster plan, that they will not allow a move-in of people coming from an area where they've been told to self-quarantine. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's the only way to handle this. I am suggesting that some communities are taking that hardline approach. Others are allowing people to come in, and they have not impacted move-in dates yet. But it's certainly something to discuss. Remember, we are not under a complete shutdown, stay-home order yet throughout this state. So we still have people living in our communities, heading out into the larger community and coming back. So the threat is not always coming from the outside in. Sometimes it's our residents going out and bringing it back in with them.
Thanks, Donna. So, Kat, I want to broaden the question a little bit for you. It's been 6 days since we had our last webinar. What's changed? What have we learned in the last 6 days? And what best practice have we addressed this order of this 14-day quarantine from people from the infected states? How have we incorporated that into much of the work that you're doing with our team?
So thank you, Tim. And yes, we are in a different state, I would say, definitely from last week when we spoke last week. We spent a lot of time talking about the amenities and the closure of the amenities, what was being closed, what wasn't, and so on. And this week has changed, right? There's been a lot of conversation about our employees and keeping them safe, as well as how do we continue to enforce the social distancing in our communities. And there's also been a lot of conversation as more and more cases have been confirmed, not only from residents that are self-reporting, but also from employees. And then because of the order yesterday with the New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut travelers, this just today, for example, we sent out a communication to our entire team, and in that communication, there was 2 documents. One was exact protocol on what our managers should be doing with people that are traveling from New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, the questions that they should be asking, and then also a letter to go out to the residents, informing the residents of this order, and also requesting that if they have people that are visiting from New York or any of these areas, that they are required to quarantine themselves for 14 days. So we're trying to incorporate all of this information that we're getting into the daily communications that we're sending to our managers. It's a lot, but we've tried to make it as simple as possible for them so that they can follow directions. They have templates that they can use, and also a very detailed protocol that can guide them and also guide our board members as well.
So, Kat, how much of this is going to be the honor system versus really monitoring the movement of these people?
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, there is part of this is the honor system, right? How much can we force our residents to come forward and inform us that they have contracted the coronavirus, that they're positive? I mean, surprisingly, though, we have received a lot of our residents that are concerned. Maybe they are not positive, but they have some of the symptoms, or they've been exposed to other individuals that they've heard have the coronavirus. So there has been a lot of conversation around that. I think residents may be concerned. They want to make sure that everybody else is safe. They want to make sure that management is taking all the precautionary measures. So they are coming to the office, not coming to the office, they're calling the office or emailing us on all of this information so that we can act upon that. And that's a lot of the information back and forth that's going on right now, Tim, around all of our properties.
So, Donna, how do you see this? Is it honor system, or is it really
Well, I think whatever protocols we put in place, we have to realize that a lot is dependent on having accurate information. For instance, with regard to having new residents come into the community from New York or New Jersey or Connecticut, we're assuming that they're going to say, hey, I'm flying in next week from New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut. They could just as easily leave those states, take a train to DC, and say, I haven't been there, I'm coming in from DC. A lot of what we're seeing in terms of boards rushing to implement safety protocol can also create an unfortunate and false sense of security here. And I'm sure we're going to get into the use of thermometers. And so if we've got certain protocols, people may think, okay, we're safe. this is the protocol in place, when reality, the protocol has as many holes as Swiss cheese in it.
Right. So Steve, can you tell us a little bit about the amenities in your community? What do you, as president of Ocean Club, what kind of community is it so that we understand what you're responsible for? And then how would you try to implement the monitoring of people that are supposed to be in quarantine for 14 days?
Sure, Tim, glad to adjust. You know, was thinking about it as I was hearing you guys talk back and forth about New Jersey and New York, and I never knew them to get such a bad label for Miami, but we've always quarantined people coming from there on Key Biscayne, regardless of the virus. No, just kidding. You know, the Ocean Club is kind of a unique property, and it presents its own set of conditions and challenges, if you will. It's a Four Seasons Ritz-Carlton without the hotel component. We've got 6 different associations, 11 buildings. You know, they're all individually governed, and, you know, the amenities sit on the master association, which I have. So I've got everything from restaurants to, you know, to spa, fitness center, tennis, kids center, youth center. I've got your potpourri of problems and challenges, actually. With regards to how we're dealing with this new order, you know, I would just tell you, I don't think it's easy for anybody to manage through this situation. Well, how the directives and the advice have come down over the last, you know, 2 weeks have been particularly challenging. You know, we've had to approach each day with a new set of challenges and a new set of communication that has to go out to the resident owners. And just this latest one, you know, that you know, your family coming, let's hold them off, let's not have them come in, quarantine. You know, I will tell you, in our communities, we've already been trying to, for the last over a week, 10 days, where we can, to intimate the social distancing and the self-isolation. You know, I'll tell you also, we saw a lot more people coming down 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. We haven't seen as many people in the last week or so. I think people said, listen, if I'm going to be stuck someplace, I'd rather be stuck in my place in South Florida than be up in the Northeast. So it's a real problem. Luckily at the Master Association, I don't have residents. I don't have a building per se that I'm trying to manage in that regard, but I can see what's going on at our individual buildings.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Donna, I want to back up a little bit to last week. We talked about emergency powers that, based on the fact that the state is under, the governor has issued state of emergency. So what have we learned in the last week about emergency powers, and does that impact any of the conversation we're having so far this afternoon?
Yeah, the discussion around emergency powers, Tim, has I would say remained fairly consistent. We've gotten confirmation from the Division of Florida Condominiums that the emergency powers outlined in chapters 718, 719, and 720, which were originally drafted to take into account how boards must cope in the aftermath of a hurricane or other natural disaster, can now be used with regard to this medical crisis. So I don't think there's any question right now that emergency powers have been activated. The real question is to what extent and what do you want to do with it? And that's where a conversation with legal counsel really comes in. And to Steve's point, shopping for free legal advice, I would urge you work with the association attorney who knows your community best, because there's no one size fits all. Some communities like Steve's have a plethora of amenities and employees and residents, and that's a lot different than a 12 lot single family homeowners association in Margate. These are worlds apart. But certainly we're having conversations about the ability to cancel or postpone meetings, or to hold meetings with as very little advance notice. As you know, that's one of the big bugaboos in associations, is you have to give sufficient notice. Well, now under these circumstances, boards have a little more flexibility to be a little more nimble, because as we said, this landscape is changing on a daily basis. What the biggest discussions we're having right now, Tim, is do the emergency powers allow boards to shut down or render certain portions of the property, typically the common amenities, uninhabitable? And this can also be extended to guest visitation and to the quarantine discussion we're having. Now, there's a couple different sections in the emergency powers. There's one that I particularly like, which is the ability to create a disaster plan. And that, in my opinion, is pretty broad authority. So boards need to be implementing a disaster plan. If you want to address guest visitation, ongoing construction projects, quarantining, do that within the umbrella of a disaster plan, because the emergency powers acknowledge a disaster plan and the board's ability to enact one.
Thanks, Donna. Kat, I want to come to you with this question to follow up. I know our team has put in great effort over the last couple of weeks to monitor each of the amenities in every single building that we manage. What are you seeing as far as shutdowns? What's still open? What's completely shut down from the experience that you've seen from a practical point of view?
So we have seen, for example, the gym completely closed. We have seen that. The pool area, that's the one that we still have some, very few, but some communities that do have the pool area open. The mail room is still open in a lot of our communities. So I would say right now, the one amenity that it still remains open is that pool area. Everything
Kat, how
else.
about valet services? How about valet service?
Valet is currently very limited in our different locations. So we are, what we're doing with the valet is pretty much they're assisting the residents if they need any assistance, but most of our residents are requested to actually park their cars. And so if they need, for example, the valet attendant to maybe walk with them, keeping the 6-foot distance, they will, but valet for the most part is extremely limited in all of our properties. So that's also another crucial area.
And Steve, how have you addressed these amenity closures? I know you've had to make some tough decisions over the last couple of weeks. Some of them have gotten easier as municipalities stepped in and said, you do need to do this. But what was your decision-making process as you evaluated your community since you service so many different people?
You know, it's been really interesting. And, you know, we've looked at, you know, in our situation, we have self-managed buildings. We have third-party managed buildings, and they're not all managed by the same third party. So the level of information coming at us and advice was different. You know, frankly, for you guys have been at the front of most of this in your communication. You know, and as far as the legal advice, you know, a number of our associations are all using the same law firm. Thank God. That has made it a lot easier. So there's a lot more consistency in messaging. You know, I would tell you 2 weeks ago when we started shutting things down, 10 days ago, the first steps were pretty easy. Let's shut down the restaurant. Let's shut down the spa, you know, where you have that close, intimate contact in the youth center and the teen center. Those were easy. It got a lot more complicated when we went into phase 2 of the gym. The first phase of the gym was, let's limit the number of people. Let's put a cleaning attendant in there, you know, on an hourly basis, cleaning up, limit how many people can come in there. And I will tell you, the worst of all was shutting down the pool, because there's so much conflicting information out there about pools. And the fact is, everything I've read, and I'm not the expert, is that the pool is okay. But guess what? Not the social aspect of the pool. And frankly, I got a call from our police chief and fire chief the other day that said, shut it down. Now, do they have that authority? I don't want to go into that, really, because I think there's some gray area, because I am a private property. But the fact is, we shut it down. Not every one of these decisions were favorable decisions. I expected some more people to come over the fence that did. Some did come over the fence. But what I will tell you, and this is really interesting, the younger, and I've got a socioeconomic demographic like no other community. It's not mostly young. It's not mostly old. It's not mostly families. It's everything. And the most interesting thing to me, and I was really seeing it since we shut down the pool, is that the younger group thought we should have been shutting down everything a week and a half ago. Nothing, no amenity, zero, cut down everything. I mean, and they were vigilant in that regard. And I will tell you, in the senior side of the community, they're the ones that have probably been the most vocal about shutting those pools off. And I was on a call right before I got on with you guys with one of my senior residents saying, you're crazy, it doesn't make sense. You know, listen, I get it. We're going to make unfavorable decisions right now, but hopefully in the long run, if we just listen to the advice we're getting, we're going to be over this soon enough. And that's probably one of the most frustrating things I've had. I'm in the financial services market. I'm seeing the reactions of the economy and how people are behaving. And I do believe this is very super important that we shut things down now. And if we do, then we can pop back out. It's just an extended vacation. And what do you know? You're going to spend some more time with your family than you probably ever anticipated spending. So
Steve,
it's not all easy. And when I signed up for this, I wasn't expecting a pandemic, but it's life.
So Steve, you are responsible for a big company with the thousands of employees. What have you learned from your business experience that you've been able to apply to being on a board as a volunteer?
This too shall pass. This too shall pass. And I've owned my company for 30 years now. And as one of my board members in my company was reminding me last week, I've been there for 8 crises. I mean, the first thing that told me was I was pretty old, and then of course he affirmed that I was old. But the reality here is being on an HOA or condo board has nothing to do or any similarity with being on a company board. You know, company boards, everybody shows up, they're all there, they know something about the organization, and their goals are all quite similar. It's very interesting, especially in a community like mine, similar to, I'm sure, a lot of the other communities that are tuning in. I have successful professionals from all different walks of life. And you know what? Some of them are doctors, and, you know, some of them are scientists, and some of them are, you know, Fortune 500 CEOs. And you know what? They all got great advice, and they're used to being heard, and they're used to their opinions being valued. So what have I learned from my company days to bring to this? Patience. You know, everybody's got an opinion, you know, and asked, you know, I was asked a question, what was it like bringing the associations together? Because we're all governed individually with different boards, et cetera. All you need is a pandemic. It'll bring everybody around real quick. And so I've been super fortunate. You know, I've got a board that everybody's singing from the same hymn book. I've got associations that understand the importance of communicating as one organization. And I got a pretty good management team. And as a leader of this group, I'm only as good as those people behind me. And so far, they're doing a great job. And we're very, very fortunate. Not that it's gone perfectly, because nothing's gone perfectly. But yeah, I'm really proud of what we've done so far.
And Steve, who have you relied on? Where have you gotten your information to help you make these kind of decisions?
You mean after my 7- and 9-year-old daughter who are doing reports on Katalina? I've relied on stuff. I've gotten information from every place you could possibly imagine. You know, Miami-Dade has been really out in front of it. I mean, the fact that the mayor and, you know, Dade County came down with it, I mean, he took a super serious position right out of the gate. I think we were even ahead of the state on a lot of stuff. So that was one of our big sources. The Village of Key Biscayne has been very accessible. We've got, you know, channels of communication open. We're a small community, so we're getting right to our city officials. You know, in the Ocean Club, we have, you know, somewhere around 10+% of the population on the island. So we've got some pretty good information coming in. And listen, not to plug for you guys, but I'll plug for you. You guys have been in front of everything coming out, you know, in the community from a management standpoint. And we've really relied on your stuff, and it's helped to set the tone. And listen, we're not discriminating amongst any of the management companies, because they're all coming out with information, and we're just trying to disseminate that information in a very responsible and timely way.
And just to be clear, you're talking about KW Property Management Station. So I just want to make that plug. So Donna, back to you on the comments that Steve's making as far as working with public officials and relying on them, working with the attorneys to make good decisions. How's the best way for them to all be communicating so that these tough decisions that get made in a way so that you're protecting, you're not trying to hurt anybody or take away amenities. It's about protecting the health of everybody in the community.
Yeah, all of these conversations and board decisions need to be framed with safety first. I mean, we have a legal obligation, we have a moral obligation, we have a societal obligation right now to be making decisions in the best interest of our residents. That's number one. Steve, I would tell you this, that while there's grumblings now about closing everything, what we've seen this week as we start to prepare notifications to the communities, because there are now active infections that are being reported, now I see that as an opportunity. You know, when you have to disclose, and I'm sure we're going to get into that, Tim, but when you have to disclose, it gives you an opportunity to reinforce why you took the steps you took. And the people last week who were complaining and threatening to sue, this week, when they find out there's active infections, suddenly the grumblings have gone away because now they suddenly get it. I don't know why this is, and I suspect it's just human nature that we don't really understand danger until danger actually shows up on our doorstep. Until then, it's a hypothetical, but that is what it is. So we are seeing in the communities that the active infections are starting to crop up, that now they're actually praising the boards for taking a more hardline stance immediately out of the gate. In terms of your question, Tim, I think boards need to establish an official communication channel. In a community like Steve's, I'm sure you guys have everything. You've got group text, group email, social media presence, a website, newsletters, maybe an in-house cable channel. Those are all great, but your folks need to know this is where officially we are going to be updating you several times a week on COVID-19 information for the community. That's going to be very important because what will happen, we're all kind of tuned into the 24-hour news cycle. I am no exception. If I go a few hours without knowing what the numbers are worldwide, I suddenly feel like my world is falling apart. And your residents are doing the same thing. They're going to be looking for that information. So make sure that the association is the source of that information. Now, I would also urge boards, you are not doctors. You are not experts in containing a pandemic. You're not maybe you have some scientists, maybe you have some doctors, but you want to be relying on the Department of Health, the CDC. You want to reach out to your local officials. And you always want to be attributing the information you're giving, whether it's legal counsel, management, or other professionals, to them. That's also true for the emergency powers. Emergency powers language says that boards can rely upon professionals and attorneys. We would fall within that category. Certainly health officials would fall within that category too. And one last thing with the statutory powers, I want to get back to that. One that I think is going to become increasingly important in the coming weeks is going to be the ability under the emergency powers to appoint assistant officers. You have to assume that some of your board members are going to get sick at some point. I know several people, young people right now, who are in the hospital dealing with this disease. You should be making those plans now as to who can step into your shoes. Steve, it sounds like you're doing a great job, and I hope everybody on your board stays healthy, but you can't assume right now that every board in Florida is going to escape unscathed. Chances are that you will have critical board members who are playing crucial roles in this crisis who may fall ill and no longer be able to serve on the board for a few weeks while they focus on getting better.
Donna, that's a really good point. I just read today that Prince Charles has been tested positive for coronavirus. So now the Crown in England has to figure out who's going to take his place if he has to be quarantined for 14 days. So William steps up and he takes that place.
Right.
And so it affects everybody. It doesn't matter how tall you are, how short you are, how much money you have. Everybody can be affected by this.
I
And
was
so
more impacted by the news that Jackson Brown had tested positive. I really like his music.
Well, I think we're still happy that Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson are getting over it. So that, for the U.S., we're good with that. And Kat, so one of the things I want to talk about today is like we're infected. Now what? What do we do? And Kat, I know that we've had positive tests come back on a number of owners that live in properties that we manage. So what's next from that standpoint? You know, up to this point, we've been preparing for something like this. So how do we address that with our staff, with the owners? How is communication being handled from a protocol standpoint now that we know we have people infected on property?
Right, so the protocol that we're following, so once we have a resident that has confirmed that they have the coronavirus, at that point, our team or our property manager will definitely reach out to the board, and they will relay this information to the board, and then at the same time present them with the communication, the templates that we have in place. Some of the board members are also reaching out to their attorneys as well, so I think it's a combination of positions that take place during this time. And then between all of them, it's determining what are going to be those next steps. Obviously, one of the first things that we do is bring in a company that can help with the cleaning of all of the common areas, any other areas of the property where maybe this person that has the coronavirus pass through or whatever it may have been, but there are companies that are coming in and assisting in the sanitation of all of these areas affected by that person. And it's typically the hazmat companies that are coming in and assisting with that. There's also a communication that is sent out to the community, informing them that there has been a person that has confirmed to have the coronavirus. And in addition to that, we let them know what are the steps that have been taken from a precautionary nature, just to make sure that everybody feels safe and that we're doing the right thing for the community. So it's a variety of things that take place at that point.
And without disclosing the person who necessarily is affected, how does that message get out to the rest of the owners so that they know if somebody in the building has been infected, and they just as from an information standpoint, how's that being handled?
Right. So, I mean, that information is kept private. We don't give any specifics as to, if there is a certain elevator that goes to that person's unit or any of that is given. It's not provided in that letter that's sent out to the residents. So it's a letter pretty much informing them that there is somebody in the community that has contracted the coronavirus. They are being quarantined. So we do have to go ahead and disclose that in the letter, because there are conversations that take place with the resident initially that has that has contracted the virus, of understanding, what procedures are they following? Are they quarantining themselves, or is there special care that's going to be provided to them? So all that information is gathered, and then through the communication to the community, that's also relayed in a very private manner, not disclosing any specific names or any location of where this person lives or anything of that nature.
And Steve, how do you guys communicate in your community? You've got text messaging, emails. There's a lot of different ways that you can communicate. What's the best form for you to communicate inside your communities?
All of the above, including Snail Express. We've got WhatsApp chats. We've got text going on between the board members. We've got emails when we've got to communicate with everybody. One of the things that we did very early on, like 2 weeks ago, was we set up, and we didn't really have this set up before, is a whole leadership chat, if you will. And that includes, we have a structure where we have, a board, and it's a big board. We have 7 people on the Master Association board, plus we have voter reps. So we have representatives of each one of the 11 buildings that effectively represent those buildings. Plus you've got boards and management at the individual associations. And we put everybody together from day one. And we said, we're going to communicate as one. It's great that we got a hierarchy of a master association board, but we're going to communicate everything to everybody so that we can all be on the same page. Because we thought, very simply, we're only as good as our weakest link. And if we don't have one of our buildings that's connected and following a somewhat similar protocol, then we could potentially have problems. And since we also have the control of the front gates, we thought we needed to kind of set the stage or lean in and lead on some of the things that we thought should be followed around, no more guests, no more domestic help and that type of thing. It was up to the buildings ultimately to enforce that, but they have all. I mean, we all got in line and we're all moving in the same direction with regards to that. It's great because I'm seeing the managers communicating right now at a level that's never been here in the 15 years I've been here. I mean, they're all working together. They're all agnostic as to who they report to. They're all kind of working as a team right now, which is unfortunate that it takes, things like hurricanes and national disasters, 9/11s to bring out our true spirit and connectivity as a community. But it's pretty common and prevalent here.
So it sounds like you're doing a great job getting ahead of it in your community. How would you say, what's the impact been in the community as far as getting that message out and the reaction that you're getting from people? Is it irritating them? Is it upsetting them? Or are they happy to have the communication they're getting?
No, I think everybody has been very, very pleased or satisfied. What we've tried to do is communicate regularly, factually. Not a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of things. It was very difficult at the very beginning because it was like every day we were coming out with a slightly different, thing that we were changing. After about a week ago, we had the gym shut down, we had the restaurant shut down, everything was kind of shut down. So we had a few days, 5-6 days, without a lot of craziness, just reinforcing protocols, how we're cleaning hot spots. And then when the pool came down Monday, and that was kind of the last thing, if you will. So we're essentially on a lockdown, if you will, other than having food delivery service. What's really interesting is we've also got a number of residents and also some of our voter reps that are pulling together to put together a grocery delivery service for some of the communities. That's not being done at the association level. That's being done at the community level. So again, just really showing their strength and their willingness to support the neighbors.
And Donna, you certainly have a lot of properties that you're dealing with. How many properties are coming to you and saying, Donna, how do we communicate this message? We're feeling awkward. This isn't an easy message to communicate. What do you recommend to the board members as far as getting on top of it? Steve's very comfortable with this. He runs a company. He understands the importance of communication. What are you recommending to your customers? Donna, you're on mute right now.
Oh, I am?
Now you're okay. Now
You
you're
unmuted
okay.
me. Thank you for unmuting me. I said it's not really just about me, Tim. We've got 12 offices throughout the state of Florida. We've got more than 40 community association attorneys, and we're all getting these calls. And I believe our advice is all the same when it comes to our clients in terms of establishing those communication channels and getting out ahead of it. To Steve's point, I think that some of it's been difficult because they see their lives getting narrower and narrower. First, they couldn't use the gym, and then they might not have been able to use the card room. And then the last the last holdout is that pool area. And yeah, I mean, there are some communities that still have the pool open. You know how I personally feel about having the pool open. I feel like a complete shutdown is probably the safest way to go, as opposed to having to figure out which amenities should be open and which shouldn't. That's not to say that in a smaller community where you only have a dozen people, it's much easier to enforce social distancing at a pool as opposed to a community with hundreds of people where you're going to have a stampede if you leave everything but 10 lounge chairs. So that becomes a real issue. I started at the outset saying this probably wasn't a time to shop around for free legal advice. It's probably not the time to self-manage either. It's going to be very, very difficult. Those boards that don't have professional advisors, professional managers, and legal counsel to guide them through this, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to try to navigate this. I think credible reporting is the most important. I'll give you an example from my own community. Happened to be out the other day heading to Publix, and my neighbor says, do you know so-and-so tested positive? Reached out to the board. The board hadn't even been told yet. So the most credible evidence, and I'm sure Kat can confirm this, is somebody picking up the phone and saying, hey, I've been exposed to this, or I've tested positive. And that's when you go into action. These protocols have to be reviewed, Tim, on an almost daily basis now. As we continue to see, each of these little state of emergency orders and executive orders are slightly different. We've got the city of Miami that has now said, stay at home. Don't go out unless you're going out to go to the doctor's or the pharmacy or the grocery store. I had a client in Sunny Isles ask me, does this apply to us? Different city, different set of circumstances. But the Sunny Isles client, just like the Miami or Miami Beach client, are both under the Miami-Dade ordinance, which talks about essential businesses. So one of the questions I'm getting right now is management an essential business? Can we still have these people coming into our community to help us? And the answer is yes. Under these orders right now, management, anybody who is helping to maintain and operate the property and safeguard it is essential.
And Kat, back to you on the follow-up on what Donna just talked about. It's changing every day, and getting out in front of this and having the proper protocols important. Like, give everybody an idea, like what's the first 3 or 4 hours of your day every single morning start with? How do you, because you've done an absolutely fantastic job with our customers getting information out. How have you been doing that, and how have you gotten your message out to all of our staff?
Thank you, Tim. And yes, those first, I would say 3 hours of my day are extremely critical. That's when a lot of the information is coming in. And so what we're doing, and it's a concerted effort, it's the entire team here at KW Property Management, including Frank Simone, our in-house legal counsel, Paul Kaplan, Robert White, our managing partners, Suzette Diaz, our director of human resources. So it's really the entire team coming in and starting our mornings at 8 o'clock with a call where we go through what has changed from the day before. Where are we as it relates to any changes from the orders that are coming in from the different municipalities, right? How does that affect our properties? How does it affect our employees? So gathering all this information on top of what's coming in from our properties. What are the questions that are being asked? What's the information that our board members need in order to maybe take that next step, right? So it's gathering all this information during that morning call, addressing the concerns, and then putting together a communication that will go out either to our board members or communication that goes out to our team internally. So that's pretty much what we've been doing on a daily basis, I would say, for the last 3 weeks, which feels like 6 months because it's been round the clock, nonstop. But more than anything, it's really an effort of how do we get this information out, right? Because we know people want the facts. People want the information that's going to help them make a decision. And that's what our focus has really been on, all of us. How do we get information to our people and to our clients so that they can make the right decision?
Tim, if I could just follow up on that. I think it's an excellent point, Cap, but I also think you have to deliver the information in a variety of formats. We know that people have varying skill sets when it comes to reading, understanding, and digesting material. Can we all agree on that?
Yes.
Some of our people do not read well, okay? They may read the first 3 sentences. We've got a lot of people who like to gloss over information. And then we have the more professorial types who would love to dig into the executive orders that are out there. My suggestion would be, once you establish your official communication channel, you provide a variety of different formats for the same information. So go ahead and put up the latest executive order, okay? For those people that can understand that format, they'll love it. They'll dig into it. They don't want the bullet points. They want the actual meat of the order. But you've got other people that don't want the meat of the order. That is way too confusing for them. They want bullet points. They want something a lot easier to digest. So I think you need to break this down. You know, and I think Steve expressed it so well, you've got a lot of different people living in these communities. It's not a one size fits all. People learn and understand things in a variety of ways. Some people have the Twitter mentality, tell it to me in 140 characters or less, and other people want a tome. They want to know the whole thing. So I think that the information needs to go out. Could be the same information, but take into account that people digest this stuff very differently.
So Kat, how have we pivoted? I know that I see all the communication that we send out, and I get it through email and I can print it out, and I understand what we're doing. How have we pivoted from our client standpoint as far as trying to consolidate some of the information so we're not piecemealing all the great information that we're putting out there on a daily basis?
And Donna's exactly right. I mean, we have through all of this from the beginning of when this started, I would say for 3 weeks, it's really trying to determine which is the best way to provide this information. So for example, amenity closures, right? That was the hot topic last week. Let's provide it in graph format so that people can easily understand what our properties are doing, who's closing what percentage of properties have the pool closed, and so on. Right? Then it's breaking down protocol, for example, in a bullet point format so that they can easily understand this internally for our entire workforce, creating flowcharts. This is new to all of us. We have all types of situations happening internally with employees. So how do we help our managers navigate through this? And creating flowcharts that indicate if an employee calls out sick, these are the questions that you need to ask. These are the precautionary measures that need to be taken. If an employee is not sick and is afraid of coming to work, how do we handle those situations? So newsletters, right? Some communities are huge with newsletters, and putting pictures on there have helped some of these communities. For us internally, even for our managers, making it simple for them so that it's easier to read and understand, because we are all, I have to say, we have all been bombarded with emails, right? It's tons and tons from all the different vendors, all the different service providers about this virus, from attorneys, from everywhere they're coming in. So we have adapted and changed our way of communicating to really try to get this information properly out to all of our clients and all of our employees.
And you're right, Kat, that's a really good point, because there's a lot of coronavirus clutter that's starting to just jump on our backs. I used to be really interested to know what Target and Starbucks and Costco and Southwest Airlines was doing. They all have my email address. But now I don't really have time to read all that, because there's so many other things I'd rather be spending my time reading. So Steve, can I ask you, if you're comfortable answering this, have you had any positive confirmed cases of coronavirus in your community, and what are you doing from a communication standpoint? I know you're responsible for the master, not the individual buildings where the people live, but how's your community handling that?
Well, as you know, I can't really answer that. But on whether we have a case or not, I can tell you this much, and it was quite frustrating actually last week. I was watching some of the community chats, you know, just keep us sane, and they were talking about, you know, this building having X and that building having Y, and I can tell you it was factually completely inaccurate. And, you know, I wanted to jump out there and say, you guys don't know what you're talking about, but, you know, I just really didn't feel like that was necessary. You know, a lot of times, you know, rumors and all don't need to be addressed. You know, let's just stick with the facts, communicate what we know. We have protocol established that if we have a case at a building, under the advisement of their council, there are certain things that they will distribute to their residents, as long as protocols are adhered to. You know, there's a limit to what I should be communicating at the Master Association. If they are not adhering to those protocols and they are, you know, managing to wander into community property, then there's another level of communication that I have to provide. So it became, you know, quite apparent last week that my proofreader needed to go from being the GM to being our legal counsel on anything I was going to start communicating, because this is all uncharted territory for most of us, and especially the people sitting in my shoes. You know, I don't care what I did before I got here. I was in the commercial real estate finance business. It didn't prepare me for communication on a pandemic, let alone any other type of crisis. So we're walking very cautiously and trying to stay very factual on everything we're communicating. And I got to tell you, there's been a lot of hysteria around and craziness. This is a super important issue, but we need to be calm. You know, we just need to be calm. And if they would have told us, the governments and the news, that we were just going on vacation for 90 days and we just take a chill pill and it had all been a lot better than what it's been. Listen, none of us knew how to deal with it. More information coming out each day, taking it more seriously. You know, today, you know, residents are still super upset about the pool. And my response to them is, listen, chill out. We're going to open it back up. The more we conform to what we've been asked to do, the quicker this will be going to be over. We're going to get to the other side of this. I'm just ready for, you know, 60 days from now when my investment portfolio looks better and my kids can go back to school.
So I think everyone's in that same boat. And Donna, I know a lot of board members rely on their attorneys for information, and it's changing very fast. So that's what we keep talking about. From day to day, it's changing. If you haven't talked to your attorney for 2 weeks, what would you recommend to that board?
Stop what you're doing right now and call or email your attorney. The reality is, frankly, that was one of my fears, and you just articulated it. I know that there are boards out there that asked for advice 2.5 weeks ago, took it, and they think they're fine. And, you know, we don't need to call the attorney again. Don't want to spend the money to speak to the attorney. We got the advice 2.5 weeks ago. The advice 2.5 weeks ago is not the advice today. I will tell you, 2.5 weeks ago, there was still some question as to whether or not the statutory emergency board powers applied. Our advice now is different. We have had confirmation that it does, and that continues to evolve. We weren't under stay-at-home orders. There were not the release of various county and municipal states of emergency executive orders. So, I don't want this to be the Lawyer Relief Act here, but you do need to be checking in with counsel. And frankly, counsel needs to be checking in with you. I know the attorneys here at Becker, we've been reaching out, and we're circling back. As this thing continues to evolve, our advice continues to evolve. Like most attorneys out there and management companies, we've created a web page for our clients, but we just recently took down our frequently asked questions and answers. You know why? Because the stuff that was on there has changed so drastically in 2.5 weeks. And frankly, if you put that up there and somebody reads it today and relies upon it, it may no longer be best practices tomorrow. So I really do think this needs, we don't know how long, if it's going to be enough, if we're going to be out of this by Easter, as we're being told might be the case, or more realistically, a few weeks beyond that. But this is something that needs to be visited really every few days to see if we're still doing what we should be doing.
So I think this might even been something that Steve and I talked about earlier in the week. So we closed our amenities down and we came to you and said, somebody came to me and said, look, I'm willing to sign a waiver at my own risk. I want to use the pool. I want to use the gym at my own risk, of course. Can I sign that waiver? What would you say?
Mine would say no. Pools closed, pools closed. I just had this come up with a client, and this was an interesting one. Well, we've got two. One with a medical condition who wants to use a pool. And one is, right now we're all doing what we can to stay fit. So I don't know if everybody on here is doing those virtual online training classes, but in one of my communities, it's a physical trainer, and she wants to go down and film at the closed shuffleboard court to film her class. The answer is you close stuff down, you close stuff down, regardless of a release. It's the same thing. Well, can they go in the pool? We have a sign saying they swim at their own risk. That's not really going to insulate you. We talked last week, Tim, about the fact that in Florida, under 718, board members can be held personally liable if they exhibit a reckless disregard for safety in their community. Okay? So again, you have to frame this. We've closed the pool. We've closed the common areas. We understand, but we can't open it up. It's not about insulating the community. It's not about insulating the board if that person wants to go on and release the association. It's about a protocol that applies to everyone, to be fair. Because frankly, even with the release, you're going to have people say, how come you've let that person go on there? That's a real problem. And
so we live in a world of entitlement. And so much of what I hear is everybody feels like they're entitled. It's their home. If you live in a single family home, and we manage a number of HOAs as well, large HOAs, and maybe next week with a little bit of twisting, I can get one of our large presidents from an HOA to come on and talk about how they manage 3,000 homes. But we all have to understand that we can't make our own decisions as if we live there by ourselves. When you sign up, especially living in a condo, there's laws and rules that you have to follow. Rules and regulations are oftentimes broken in condominiums. So it's so important that as management, we enforce those. As board members, I would say anybody that's a board member on the call today, any rule you have, anything you're asking your owners and association to do has to start with you first. You have to be the leader in everything you do. If it doesn't apply to you, why should it apply to your neighbor? And that means you have no rules then. So that would be my recommendation, is take this seriously, apply the rules to you first, show leadership, and you will get others to follow that way. That's the cleanest way to do this. Kat, if I could ask you, and Steve, you may want to talk about this too. You've got a large staff. Kat, we obviously have a large staff. How are we handling the staff itself? Because to us, our staff is the most important thing, greatest asset we can have. We put a lot of time into recruiting and hiring the best people in the industry. We believe we do the very best job training in everything that we do. And so how do we keep all those people employed and engaged, knowing that we're very fortunate that we are an essential service. Our customers believe that they need our services for what we provide, but how do you keep everybody engaged and involved in maybe not doing their job that they were hired for, but there's other things they could work on today?
Tim, that definitely for us, I would say this week has been a huge focus because it's a very, people and employees get very anxious during these times. People are nervous. They don't know what's next, what's coming, and so on. So it has been a huge undertaking for us, making sure that our employees are feeling comfortable coming to work, making sure that our employees are still engaged. And I have to report we have a wonderful, wonderful team. I have, for example, our quality control team has been visiting some of our sites, and more than anything, making sure that our team is properly taken care of and that we're taking all the precautionary measures. And it's so, for me, it's extremely gratifying to receive pictures and seeing our team happily, making sure that they're following through with their tasks of cleaning the common areas, making sure they're wearing their gloves and all their protective gear during these times. So I think from one part of it is making sure that we are taking all of those measures. And I know our property managers are leading the way in that and doing an excellent job. The other part is handling those employees that do feel nervous, and how do we manage them and help them get through this, right? You also have employees that have family members at home that may have been exposed to the coronavirus, or even employees that may not be feeling well. So with that part of it, we're making sure that they're staying home and not coming to the properties. And then, like you mentioned, some of the situations that we've had to adapt to is if we do have so many of the amenities closed, what are our team members doing on site, right? So many of our maintenance team members, for example, we're going through the work orders, we're going through some of those deferred projects that just we haven't had an opportunity to complete, and making sure that all of those are getting done. Many painting projects that sometimes kind of get pushed back, making sure that all of that work is being done. And I'm getting pictures of all of this, some deep cleaning and all in certain amenity areas that needed it very much, So we're shifting some of their usual routines to different areas. So for example, even in one of our properties, we had the pool attendants help out in the receiving area because there are so many packages now coming into our properties. A lot of people are home, they're buying online. So the package room was extremely busy, and we then used our pool attendants to come in and help in the receiving area in checking in all of these packages and making sure that everything was being handled accordingly. So that's just a one example, but we even had another property where the valet attendants are actually helping the maintenance team and helping in some of the painting projects that needed to get done throughout the property. So it's a time right now where we want to take care of our staff. We want to make sure that they're engaged, that they're motivated during these hard times. And more than anything, that when we do come back, we have the entire team ready to get these properties back up and running, which is really kind of where we're going to focus next, is having those plans around reopening some of these properties and amenities and making sure we've got the employees focused on getting that accomplished.
Okay, the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So this is a way to just retool. Steve, what are you doing? You've got about 130 employees out in your property that you're responsible for. What are you doing with them?
It's interesting. We've got three groups of employees. We call them subcontractors, tennis pros, trainers, purely commission. We've got tip-oriented people working in salons, spas, and restaurants. And then we have your regular staff, the office, the back of the house, the marketing, the accounting, the engineering people. And right at the get-go, our goal was to keep everybody employed as long as we possibly could and to be as fair as we possibly could. And so that created some challenges in of itself, too, when you look at that different dynamic of different types of ways that people get paid. So what we did was we approached it, the regular staff, and I was thinking more of the engineering was 9 to 5 with a skeleton crew on the weekend. The general manager and I sat down day one, 2 weeks ago and said, let's get teams of staff working together. Let's keep people on 3-4 days, 3-4 days off, next team on. That way we weren't mixing 130 people every day. Let's try and slim it down. Let's make the engineering department run 7 days a week. Not everybody liked it. Okay, didn't like it. We're not winning any popularity contests right now. But I think they're also recognizing that we're trying to keep them employed. With regards to the delivery service, we kind of tweaked the way we're handling tips, and we're actually starting some promotions today. We started yesterday running some specials, and they don't know it, but there's a little competition amongst the buildings coming in the next 24, 48 hours to see who orders more to-go service. And I'll tell you, we have a lot of residents, as it relates to those that were the subcontractors, where residents are just continuing to pay these people. That's probably the right thing to do. These people that are strictly on commission, they support you, they stay healthy, safe. It's the least we can do right now. So everybody's kind of coming together. Listen, if this goes out 60, 90 days, we'll be faced with another set of circumstances. But for right now, I can tell you the garage is getting clean. I can tell you that one of the restaurants is getting deep clean and painted. And we're taking on projects that that were scheduled to get done all year long. And we got waiters with paintbrushes, and we got people that work in the gym with brooms. Keep them employed if you can.
As my mother always says, this is a good time to do spring cleaning. So now is the time to do it. It is spring. So we're at 4 o'clock. So Donna, if I could just get 30 seconds from you, where are we going? What do you expect to happen in the next week? Where are we with viruses being recognized?
Okay, if you fell off a little bit, but where I think we're going to go in the next week or two, Tim, is we're going to have communities that have not gone to a full closure on all amenities are going to get there. We're going to see more active infections being reported inside communities. You're going to see some boards where they start having board members that have been diagnosed positive with COVID-19. So they're going to have to make arrangements amongst the board as to who's going to fill those board member slots. That's where I think we're headed. I think we're headed for a tightening of the overall lifestyle until we get past the hump. And what I would leave our listeners with is this: if you're a board member, be patient. You've got people cooped up; they're afraid. You have some people that may be fearful of being laid off, or they already have been laid off. They're seeing their lifestyle change. They're being cooped up. Some of them are being forced to homeschool children. Steve, that's not fun.
Not fun.
Yeah, not fun. So be patient, board members. And for our residents, our non-board member residents who are listening, I'd have the same advice. Be patient. Your boards are doing the best they can. They're working around the clock. I will tell you, I am so heartened by the conversations I'm having with board members, because I haven't had one board member say to me, how do I reduce my liability? That's not what these conversations are about. The conversations with board members is, how do we protect our community? How do we minimize the spread of this virus in our community? That's where the board's focus is on. So for our residents listening, be patient with your boards too. They didn't sign up to handle a pandemic, but they're stepping up to it, and they're going to get it done.
Thank you, Donna. Steve, I can assure you, your kids are having a great time having you at home. You may not feel the same way, but I know your kids love having you around.
Tim, the one thing I was going to tell you was my youngest daughter, I've got a 7 and 9-year-old. My youngest told me the other night, she goes, Daddy, I didn't know you know how to cook anything out that didn't come out of a box.
Well, pizza's still good. That comes out of a box. So, Steve, what do you think is happening? What do you expect to see in 30 seconds or less? What do you see going in Ocean Club over the next week or two? What are you looking at from an overall standpoint and the role you're playing on the property?
We've been planning for the last couple of weeks intensely. Every single day we get up in the morning, just like Kat was talking about. And I actually started saying to the group yesterday, we need to start planning the party. We are going to throw the biggest party that the Ocean Club has ever seen in the next couple of months. We are going to get through the other side of this. We will get through the next couple of weeks. We will all come together. I don't anticipate a lot of change over the next couple of weeks, other than we're just going to get more stir crazy and people are going to try and challenge the pool. I'm waiting for somebody to go jump in the pool right now that doesn't want to follow directions. But I'm going to start focusing us and the team on what we're going to do when we get done this, because this too shall pass. We will get on the other side of this.
Great. A positive message is really encouraging. You're providing encouragement and leadership. That's what board members need to do right now, is provide leadership. And Kat, what do you see? Where's KW going? We've done so much to get out ahead of this right now. We've got so much information, so much communication. What's next for us over the next week?
So I do have to agree with Donna and Steve. I think we're going to see more and more cases coming through. People are going to be home now for a longer period of time. And so I think our job as property managers is going to become even more and more important, because we are going to have people probably in self quarantine situations, people that may need to come out that have been that have the virus. So all of that is going to be so crucial for our managers. So for me as a company is continue to obtain this information, continue to provide our team members with all the precautionary measures that they can possibly take to stay healthy, which is another big part of all of this, is keeping our workforce healthy and making sure that we can continue to service all of our communities. But all of this, will continue, and it's how do we make sure that our teams have the tools that they need in order to provide the excellent service that we want to provide to all of our associations.
All right, thank you so much, Kat. So we reached our time limit. We covered a lot of ground today. Many thanks to the hundreds of Floridians that registered for today's webinar. If you have questions, please send it to us at our COVID-19 hotline. We'll send you that address following this call today. Today's session is recorded. You can watch this broadcast again or share it with fellow board members if you find value. We will send you the link to access the recording on the KWPMC Facebook page. You can also find us at our website at kwpmc.com. I do want to sincerely thank our panelist, Donna Berger, renowned attorney and shareholder at Becker Law, Steve Powell, president of Ocean Club Master Association, and KWPMC's very own Katalina Cruz. You guys did a great job again this week. We look forward to having you join us again next week on our weekly webinar. We will continue to talk COVID-19 and the association cure. From all of us at KW Property Management and Consulting, stay healthy and respect social distancing.